but
So
I enjoy the freeness.
yeah, so maybe before we go, we'll see if we can grab one of those. But Joe mentioned that you have some kind of new works coming up that are maybe not Boston related that you wanted to talk about.
Well, I have a mural that just went up in downtown Brattleboro. It
Okay.
is running related. I did it for Girls on the Run Vermont. They sponsored it, and if you're in downtown Brattleboro, it's kind of across from Mocha Joe's, and it's just a painting of kind of similar to my Boston Marathon one's a
Okay.
group of girls running down the street in downtown Brattleboro, and just the shops and restaurants and the river there. So yeah,
Do you have a photo of it?
I do.
If you don't,
Yeah,
I was just gonna say if you can send it to me, we can
yeah,
superimpose it on the video.
yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. So if you're on YouTube, hopefully that's up on on the video now. If you're on iTunes, obviously you're missing out. But um, yeah, I was like being able to like show the stuff you got going on, which is nice. Like having the photo, the painting in the background. Um, so it, they commissioned you to do it just as like an inspiration for the group, or is there another like purpose behind it?
Well, they had reached out to everyone in Vermont because there's not a lot of people in Vermont
Right.
who would run the Boston Marathon, all the women, I guess, and just said, congratulations and thanks for representing Vermont, and we hope that you can help out by coaching if your school has a girls on the run team. And I said, my school does have a girls on the run team, and I help out sometimes, but they already have a coach, and but I would love to make a painting for you if so that's how I ended up making that one in downtown Brattleboro, and I also made a painting for them that they auctioned off
Hmm.
to raise money for their charity.
So do you have um, is there like an underlying purpose or mission with your work? Are you trying to like, it seems like obviously you have a lot of running focused works, which on the surface it could be like, okay, she loves running, but obviously well, I mean not obviously, but I don't think that is the entire motivation for why you create the works. Um, so do you I guess do you have a purpose, or do you feel like you're spreading anything besides like awareness of running as you share your works with other people?
I think it's just kind of expressing the feeling that you get when you're running one of these races, or just some of them are just running in the woods also. It's something you don't really know unless you are a runner, I think, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are like, "Oh, running is it's so hard, it hurts, it's horrible," and I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like the complete opposite. I feel so free and alive when I'm running, and so I think that's part of what I like to express in my artwork. Also, since my work's very gestural, it has a lot of movement into it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to express that in some running paintings that I've seen in the past. They're very sterile. It's almost like a photograph, like a still frame.
Yeah.
And so I like to have like the motion and the movement and the crowd and all the different elements work, because it's not one thing when you're running. It's not just, oh, my legs hurt. It's not, you hear
Mm-hmm.
the crowd cheering, you feel the sun on your back, you have all these different emotions going on. So I kind of try and express all of these things encompassing in one painting, I guess. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
You see, I went on a run this morning, and for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure. I was thinking about the guys I ran with in college, and just feel like I kind of missed those guys because and you, I'm sure, experienced this at least to a greater or lesser degree in your collegiate career. Just like there's something about that kind of shared struggle that you spend with
Mm-hmm.
your teammates season over season, and even as you get older and the younger people come in and the older people just it's an ever changing team, but you still, at least for me, I find something where it's like I still feel connected to those guys, even if now they are, in far flung reaches of, you know, the U.S., nowhere near where I am now. it's still like if they showed up and wanted to go for a run, we could just pick up right where we left off.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
camaraderie on
yeah,
country team or track team. It's
right.
just, yeah, it's amazing. Running in college is the best thing ever. I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. How did you adjust after college? Because I know I had probably 18, 24 months of just like a tough adjustment of moving to doing everything on my own, basically.
Yeah. Well, I moved back to Boston after college. I
Okay.
went to WashU in St. Louis, but I moved back to Boston and I joined Greater Boston Track Club.
Hmm.
And it's a very similar college vibe. Everyone is really tight knit and goes for long runs on the weekends together. And then we get brunch and we do workouts at Reggie Lewis every week. And
Hmm.
so it was kind of like college part two, which was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really hard moving away. That was like my group in Boston was so much fun to run with, but we wanted to move somewhere rural and living in Vermont's amazing too, but I do miss Boston, especially because of Greater Boston Track Club is the best club.
So you're leaving Boston to go to rural Vermont just to have green pastures, or
Oh, a little bit. Yeah, my husband and I both wanted to start a little homestead farm.
okay.
So we had done some woofing. I don't know if you're familiar with woofing, but it's
Mm-mm.
worldwide organic farming
Okay.
thing where you can kind of volunteer on farms in exchange for room and board. So for our
Okay. I do
honeymoon,
know what you're talking about now. I just didn't know the term.
yeah, for our honeymoon, we decided to take a road trip and from down the East Coast from Maine to Florida, and we stopped at a couple farms and did some woofing there, and we
Hmm.
just loved it. So we were like, we want to start a little homestead farm, and we wanted to buy a home. Boston's getting really crowded, expensive, and
Hmm.
have a studio, and finding space in Boston for that is not easy either.
Yeah.
So but I feel like we have a pretty great setup out here. We're only 2 hours from Boston
Hmm.
still, so we can go back and visit, friends and family back there. And we have a lot of space and great dirt roads and trails to run on. So I love it out here.
So are you a working farm? Do you have like do you have things that you produce, or
We
is it
don't
just
sell
like
anything. It's for,
okay,
yeah, just for our own consumption. But we raise
okay.
pigs and chickens and vegetables.
So we have like a fair number so I'm in Kansas City. So we have a fair number of outlying like rural areas and people that have small farms, some that are, I'll say, kind of homestead and they just raise for themselves. And then we have others. There's a local place called Green Dirt Farms, and they make sheep cheese. So that's kind of their like unique thing. It's not goat cheese, it's sheep cheese.
Yeah.
So I was just curious since you made the move, if you're like, oh yeah, we also, I produce U.S. merino wool or like do
Not
something like
currently,
that.
although we were thinking we'd like to, we both love to felt and spin. We did that
Hmm.
at one of the farms that we went to. So we were thinking, at some point maybe we'd have Angora goats or sheep or something for the wool. And I'd love to have a little dye garden so I could dye the wool different colors and do that kind of natural artwork. I think that would be really nice. I'd love to move in that direction at some point, but we haven't totally got there yet.
Yeah, well, and obviously not to be like you have to do this hope, but just like I know that. So we have a really large kind of urbanization movement where people are trying to move into the city, but along with that, and I think partially because of it, people also end up being like fascinated by farms.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, let's go visit. So like we have a local dairy that supplies like I make ice cream with their products,
Nice.
and you can go visit and go see the cows and how the farm works. And
Mm-hmm.
same thing with Green Dirt Farms, you can go visit and they'll do meals and stuff. Obviously, those are not like year one kind of activities where
Right.
they didn't open and then immediately do those things, but just like I think there's certainly an opportunity to be like, this is our life, and we want to share with you some of the things we do,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know. I love. I always in the entrepreneur circles, it's kind of referred to as giving value, which is kind of vague and nebulous talk, but just like giving back to people and sharing things with people and enhancing their lives. And I kind of feel like if you had the opportunity to do that, you're kind of in this unique position where you have this place and you've got, at least in my opinion, this kind of open heart of sharing these emotions through your works, where it's like I feel like you would probably be a good person to be able to kind of share the experience with and sit down and have dinner with, over, whatever table you guys might set up at your place.
Yeah,
So,
we have all sorts of visions for our homestead, but one thing that we would love to do is we have 30 acres of wood, so we'd love to do a trail system through there and make
okay.
a sculpture garden, kind of like walk. And we have a yurt too that we were like would love to have artwork in or like have people stay in, but we haven't fully realized the goals yet because we've only been here for a couple of years. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
You'll have to keep me updated as things progress because I think just I don't. It's obviously it's presumptuous of me because we only been speaking for like a half hour, but just my impression of you is that you're resourceful. So, and I just see that, and then the kind of raw resources you have to work with, and I'm like, you're gonna do some cool stuff. I want to see what you're doing.
that's the plan. I'll keep you posted.
So, thinking about running, um, I'm always curious how people get into running because obviously I think we kind of share that similar thread where like it's not just about physical activity for us. It's more than that. Did you start as a kid? I mean, how does that come about in your life?
Yeah, I did it in high school, and then just couldn't imagine giving it up, even though I wasn't great in high school. I was just kind of an average runner, I suppose. And um, I knew I was going to go to Washington University in St. Louis. So I emailed the coach just to see, could I try out for the team? And he was like, well, your times really aren't very good.
Yeah.
Um, but you can try out. And I said, okay, well, what do you suggest I do over the summer? And he basically said, do one long run, 90 minutes, and one workout, like a fartlek workout. And I just upped my mileage a lot. In high school, you don't really, especially if you're not on a very competitive team, I just kind of was doing it for fun, but I just loved
Mhm.
it. Um, so I just upped my mileage a lot and tried out and ended up being the fastest freshman coming in. And so that was pretty cool. And then I just have kept doing it ever since because I just love it so much.